Welcome to the Kovacs Literary Perspective, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Steve Kovacs. Beset, the true story of a single father who embarks on a personal journey following a slide into emotional and financial crisis. As the author of Beset's problems mount, his internal chaos grows and his young son's autism worsens, and he realizes that he himself is his worst enemy. The journey continues, and the author chronicles a true story that will inspire divorcees, single parents, and anyone struggling in these times of financial crisis. Let me introduce the author of Beset, Lee Bullen. How are you, Lee?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Ladies and gentlemen, Lee and I have talked in the past, so I know a little bit about his book, more so than the average person and the average reviewer possibly. And this is a great topic to get into because Lee is not from the United States. He is in the Canary Islands. And for those of you that don't know where that is, it's off the coast of Spain. So he ran into a situation, his life intermingled with the global crisis. And he sat down and wrote a book about his own issues intertwined with the financial or global financial crisis. So let's dive right into it, Lee. Why'd you write a book? Why did you write a book called Beset? I mean, what made you dig into this and get a passion to write about issues in your own life and the world combined?
Well, Beset, because that was kind of the word that always came to mind when I was living through this period, this 3-year period where the global financial crisis really affected Spain, but me personally, which coincided with a bit of a personal crisis that was going on, separation, which led to divorce, which coincided with a lot of work problems, financial problems, and the diagnosis of my son with autism. So it was this crazy 3-year period. And while going through it, I just felt beset. Like beset with problems. And it was the natural title for the book. And with events going on in the world, my personal events that were coinciding with that, there was a story that I was literally living through. So it was quite easy to see that and sit down and just chronicle it really and carve it into a nice story.
You know, Lee, what's interesting when I hear you say that, and my ears are like moving when you say it. You know, you went through a divorce, a separation. I think you worded 2 of them. Your son was diagnosed with autism, the global crisis. You know, it's the financial crisis. All this stuff comes together. You're beset with problems. How do you get out of that? I mean, because I know a little bit about the book. It's a good ending towards it, and I've been told that there's a ton of deep laughter in this book, and there's a ton of sadness and enlightenment. But what happens when you get inundated with all these stresses? How do you get out of that, Lee? What do you do?
I guess that's different for everybody in a way, but I mean, what I did was, I just tackled it proactively, and I guess the book was a big part of that, because while I was writing it, I was very much living, or certainly on the tail end of these events that I've been talking about. And as I say, I was some way, a couple of years into the personal crisis that was going on, and I could see the story. I don't know. I remember I was talking to a friend one evening, and I think he said to me, "That's a story there." Mm-hmm. And I got the idea, and I just started writing it, and it was very therapeutic to write it. It helped in a great many ways, and I was able to pour a lot of emotion into it. So it's a very honest book. A lot of people that have read it sort of commented and commended me for the honesty in the book, which is what I was trying to achieve. I really wanted to write down a very honest and truthful and sincere writing style that people could relate to.
Now, Lee, let me ask you a question. I'm getting a little bit personal with you, but this is the second time we've talked, and I consider you a friend. Now, how beset were you, Lee? Were you really? Was it really? Did you have your head down? Were you like in deep depression, or not really? Or how bad were you? I guess is what I'm asking.
Truthfully, emotionally, I was okay, really. I mean, there was a lot of things going on. Certainly I was down, and I can look back on that period, and yeah, I did have depression of sorts, but I didn't go that usual route of seeking medical help or anything like that. I just tackled it the best way I could. I just day by day, trying to get through it really, and be positive. You know, look for how I was influencing those events that was going on, seeing how I could just make situations better.
Now, Lee, and the reason I want to bring that up is because right now, people all across the world are beset with issues, and many are beset with very similar to what you have, and a child with autism, and a divorce, and a thing that really got me, and I want to talk about, it's in your book, is that you say that you were your own worst enemy. Now, how can that be when you've got, you're going through a separation, your son has been diagnosed with a medical condition? What has that got to do with you being your worst enemy? Please tell me and tell the people that will listen to this.
Mainly through my own actions during the time, at least at the principal stages. I was acting out against a lot of that sort of stuff, living in denial a little bit, just being a little bit poor me, playing the victim a little bit. And and I was stuck in that for a while, which is I suffered a little bit from depression through doing that. But I guess I kind of realized early on, and I was able to start at least trying to accept things. I mean, that's the first step, really, accepting the situation and accepting your part in that, the part that you play. A lot of people believe that we attract to the things that happen to us, and I could certainly go along with that. Even some of the worst things that I experienced during that time, there were actions and decisions that I could have done that could have made all of those problems a lot better. But instead of being proactive, I was more passive, and we live in a bit of a blame culture, so I guess I was blaming outside factors a lot more, until they got to such a point where I did feel so beset that I just had to sort of take stock and look at things, and when you do that, you can see the part that you play in everything. And yeah, I was attracting a lot of it myself. I perhaps wasn't living quite right. These are some of the things that I go into in the book. And you kind of just have to strip away all the mayhem and the additional nonsense that we have in our lives, because we live very hectic lives these days. And it's when you strip away all those unnecessary wants and desires and crazy dreams and crazy beliefs that we're constantly sold every day. When you kind of step away from that and strip it down, you can start to see the beautiful things that you have in life, and the love that's always around, and the people that are behind you the whole way, that sometimes we can ignore and take for granted. But it's very important to really appreciate and treasure those people and those things that do bring value to your life.
Well, Lee, what you just said in the last 3 or 4 minutes, I think, was extremely deep, right on target. And if your book talks about this kind of thing and shows people how you went through it and what you experienced and how you got out of it, I think it's extremely important. You said that what's a woe me, you had that woe me and oh my God, and I believe, who doesn't go through that when we're beset with problems? Tons of problems. Woe me. And I think some people just stay in that for years and years. God doesn't want this to happen, or fate doesn't want this to happen. I'm going to be a loser. This is just my lot in life. I don't believe you believe that it's anyone's lot in life. Am I correct on that?
I think I did for a while. I could certainly see. It gave me insight. I can see how some people can hit rock bottom, those horrible sort of positions that some people can find in life. I think that some of us are sometimes only a push or two away from reaching that, really. I believe if there was 1 or 2 more things going on in my life at that time, then perhaps I would never have sort of got up again. But I did, and I guess I did the right things by not blaming other people and not seeking medication or going down a nasty drug route. I was dependent on something for a while, but I managed to sort that out as well. And it's just, you got to take responsibility for yourself. And we kind of live in a culture where we don't do that much. There's a lot of help that's always around and available, and there's a lot of we're constantly told to seek medical help and things like this. And really, sometimes you just need to look at yourself as a person and see how you can improve as a person, and not look for other outside factors that are perhaps going to give you a short-term, improve your life.
Yeah, and short term that's all it is, short term. Now you talk about something that I think people, when they read Beset, will find interesting. You know, I think most of us that are thinking people, and I think everybody in the world is at one time, they ask, why am I here? What's my purpose in life? And you talk about that a little bit. Now, yeah, and you smile, and you should, because it's really deep and it's cool and it must touch you a little bit. I'm going to ask you, what's your purpose in life? Did you find your purpose?
I think, I did. I talk about that really at the end of the book, which, because a lot of the book chronicles the problems and the financial crisis that we've been talking about, and I wanted to do that as well because I wanted to write at least one of the first books to cover this point in history, which I think will prove to be a very important period in history, and it's certainly relatable and as important as the Great Depression was in the 20s, and how it's affecting a lot of people. So a lot of the topics I'm covering, they're going to be very relatable to people, but out there who's suffering a lot of the same things, But
now, Lee,
just repeat the question.
No, I want to know what your purpose is, Lee. We all sit there and we go, hey, what am I here for? What's my purpose in life? And you had to do that. Because you wrote this book. You're beset and you're all these problems, and you didn't handle it well, and it was falling apart. The global crisis is there, and then you're understanding, you're building, and you're learning. And you did learn, and it's a good story at the end. And that's why I think people should pick it up, because it starts bad and it's tough. It's like everybody's dealing with all this and the global crisis. But you asked yourself, hey, what's my purpose in life? What did you find your purpose in life to be? Can you tell me that in about a minute? That's pretty tough. The purpose of the life in a minute.
I learned the importance of love, to not sound too corny or John Lennon-esque. I had a lot of love around me that I wasn't really taken advantage of. Even with my son and his autism, I was looking at that in all the wrong ways. And I wasn't seeing that there was a hell of a lot of gifts, and he's still a remarkable child in so many ways. So it was seeing that and realizing that I had so much in my life already, and the person that I was and how I could improve and what I could do to improve other people's lives. And I found that was the time when I became, or at least made the leap to be an author. I wrote before, and I was writing comedy before, but I think these events in my life forced me to, and as well as the financial and employment difficulties I found myself in, I made a choice to take this route. It was like a new start, and so although I knew it wasn't going to be easy, that's what I saw myself having to do, and with the love that I learned or relearned that was around me, I just got a lot of strength and a big appetite and enthusiasm to start that and to write this book. And since I have, that's continued. And the people, I've had some great comments from readers on the book, and it's encouraged me a lot to just continue. I saw it as my real talent.
Lee, I don't think you realize the deepness that you talk from. What you've said about love and about your autistic child, that there's so much there that you didn't even realize, and you relearned love. I tell you, it just says much for your book that has been highly acclaimed by the people on our staff that read it and looked into it, and they love it. So I don't know if you know how deep you have touched on this book. The book appears to be a great book. Before we leave, and I'm going to put a little time limit on you, and you're a comedy writer. I guess you got to make things concise. How can Beset help people that are in trouble?
I think, again, talking about readers, I received a comment the other day from one that I really liked, and I thought it summed it up perfectly. She told me that reading the book was much like sitting and having a coffee with a close friend and discussing those problems and relating and having one of those heart-to-heart discussions that you have with someone that you either love or admire. And I thought that was nice. I thought that summed it up nicely, because it's not a book that covers, massive traumatic events like some memoirs can, horrific things. It touches on everyday things that a lot of people can relate to, and it just, I think it could show, and for anyone that's going through a separation or having a difficult time with a child that might have a disorder such as autism, sure, or is suffering during these economic times, I think there's probably enough in there that they can get some strength out of this story.
Fantastic.
I certainly hope so.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking to Lee Bullen, the author of Beset. Get to know Lee Bullen. Get to know Beset. And you can do that by going to Amazon.com and just punching in Lee Bullen, punching in Beset, and get to know the gentleman as I have gotten to know him. And it's a good meeting, and I believe you'll enjoy Beset. Lee, I want to thank you again. It's been really cool. It's been great talking to you, and I hope to talk to you again, and best luck with your book, Beset.
I hope so too. I hope to see you soon.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Until later. Bye-bye.